Welcome to another episode of Becca's Talkin', the weekly podcast where every week we interview somebody different, somebody new, somebody interesting, and with an interesting story to tell. This guy's got stories. This is Dave Wingert.
Do I now?
Famous broadcaster. But before
Hey, Becca.
we get to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
As you well know, being in the business for all these years, we must do an ad for the sponsor, Havana Garage. Chaz and the group over there at Havana Garage, good people.
What garage is it?
Havana Garage in the old market.
Oh, Havana? Yeah.
Yes, it's a nice cigar bar. It's got a great selection of cocktails. It's got the motif there, if you will, would be the old Rat Pack.
Yeah.
You know, you got Dean, you got Sammy, you got the chairman of the board and all that. But it's just a great place to go to unwind after a hard day at work, or maybe go if you got an event going at the CHI Center, the Holland Center, or the Orpheum or whatever. You go there and enjoy yourself, relax, make a night of it, have dinner in the old market. Check it out. Tell them you heard about it on the Becca's Talking podcast, Havana Garage in the old market. Also, one other thing. Hey, if you're on Facebook, like the Becca's Talking Facebook page. We got all sorts of some behind-the-scenes content there, some things you don't find in the podcast, and just a way to stay connected. Check it out, Becca's Talking on your Facebook page. Okay.
It's a great name, Becca's Talking.
Becca's Talking.
It's what you do.
The guy won't shut up. But then again, you can relate, because how long have you been in the business?
My first paid gig was 1970.
Okay.
So do the math.
Yeah. So people that don't know, Dave Wingert, you longtime broadcaster, longtime radio guy. You started back in the days of Top 40 Radio. You came to WOW Radio, right, when you came to Omaha?
My first, I was down in Kansas City helping market the opening of Crown Center. And I was done advertising in New York City, a lot of radio before that, but I didn't want to be a disc jockey. I didn't want to grow up and be a DJ. Mm-hmm. So I was doing a production of Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, an Anthony Newley musical. We were doing that off-Broadway, and my chief writer at Jack Byrne and Associates, Michael Davenport, a self-avowed 6'8" warlock, moved to Kansas City, and he said, "Why don't you come with me and be my protege?" And I said, "Sure." Right?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
So when I got to Kansas City, the first thing I remember going, "Oh my God, the sky. You can see the sky." And when I walked down the street, people said, "Hello, good morning." And doesn't happen in New York City, you know. So I thought, I like it here. But I had missed radio, and I met... This is an old Steve Shannon, who used to be the general manager of WOWT Television. Mm-hmm. And he said the WOW Radio, which our studio was like back in the old building, wherever it is from here. I've lost
35th and Farnham, basically, yeah.
Still standing. And he said, "Can you say WOW?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got the job." I said, "Where is Omaha?" And he said, "You see this street here? Just go up 3 hours. Just drive north 3 hours." So I got in my pumpkin-colored Camaro and drove up on some hot Fakaktan day. It was sweating and everything. And Tom Barsanti was my program director, and we met. And that night I stayed in the Blackstone Hotel. I understood that there was a Cinerama theater here. I called my mother and said, I think I got a Cinerama theater. And I went and saw Jaws. Uh-huh. I remember where I sat. And the next morning, Barsani hired me. And that was the beginning of one of the best chapters of my life.
Tom Barsani, who told me to get out of radio.
Did he really?
Well, get out of business. Because I was working part-time before you got to a WOW. Yeah. And by the way, they were very, you mentioned this, they were very specific about how you said those call letters, weren't they?
Oh, yes. It wasn't WW.
Nah, it was WOW.
OW, yes.
And it was a top 40 radio station at the time, 59, 590 on the AM dial. Mm-hmm. Back when they played music on AM, which you still do, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Well, what's interesting is where I am now, here we are, how many years later, I'm not good at math, but I'm playing the same music I played with 45s at WOW.
Yeah.
right? Only now it's all digital and they're oldies.
Yeah, and I want to talk about what you're doing with Boomer Radio, because I think that's an incredible success
Thank
story
you.
too.
Yes, thank
and,
you.
So we'll talk about that in
right.
a little bit. But I want to get back to the early days of Top 40 Radio.
Okay.
Because you said you didn't want to be a disc jockey.
No.
You wanted to be a personality.
Yes.
Which you are. But you were following a pretty big name, weren't you? Didn't you come in right after Jimmy O'Neill?
Jimmy wanted to leave,
Uh-huh.
right? And I think memory's vague on this because I can't remember what I had for dinner last night. But I think he went to Coyle after WOW, didn't he? Nicest guy. And the thing was, Tom, that I remember listening to Jimmy that next morning and saying, "Oh God, we are so different. Either this is gonna be successful, or I'm gonna be run out of town on a rail. There's not gonna be any middle ground." Because Jimmy was, "Hey ho, everybody, this is Jimmy O'Neill." I mean, he was a disc jockey.
Yeah, and again, going back to on YouTube, you can find video of him. He used to host an ABC TV show called Shindig, which had the Beatles on, and all the big acts of the early and mid '60s.
Yeah.
Were on that show. So it was a big deal that Jimmy O'Neill was in Omaha. I remember, starting in radio, then going to school out at UNO, trying to get into radio.
Following in the steps of Johnny Carson.
Yeah, it was a big deal that he was here in town. So you had big shoes to fill.
Mm-hmm.
Was that intimidating?
Not at all. As I said, when I listened to him, I said, "Oh, I'm so different," because I'm much more. A lot of radio guys at that time got into radio to be somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
They had different names, right? And they put on a persona. And the older I got as I went through radio, I found more success when the more authentic I was.
Mm-hmm. And which actually has turned out to be the key of success for so many people in broadcasting is you basically are yourself.
Right.
And the old disc jockeys in the day.
Because people can tell.
Yeah.
Radio's the last intimate media. They can be listening to the radio and going, "Oh, there's something not right."
That's what I love about radio too, is the connection that you make with the audience.
Right.
If you're genuine and they can sense you're genuine, the connection that you can make. I've got people that still come up to me, talk about things that I did 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
Because it was, something that really stuck with them.
And someone will stop me in Target and say, "I want a Mamas and the Papas album from you." It was a Saturday, right, in 1970. Are you kidding me?
Can I talk a little bit about that whole era of radio? Because it's so different than what we see now. And you and I were talking on the way in, and we were talking about podcasting and everything. I mean, there was not even a concept of podcasting back in the day,
No.
Let alone, what we've got now, satellite radio, streaming, all of that. At the time, you were playing, like you said, vinyl records on AM radio.
Mm-hmm.
But yet there was something really exciting about that, wasn't there? I mean, just as a listener and about that era of music and that era of broadcasting.
Yes, and I find it still exciting. Whatever that excitement is, going into the studio, switching on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that even more today that I'm going to be with my listener in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So any kind of broadcasting, it was in my DNA. I mean, it was in my DNA.
As a kid growing up, did you listen to a lot of radio?
No, I grew up I was born in New York City for the first 5 years, and then we moved to Pittsburgh when my mother met the guy, Abe Wingert, who was a dry cleaner, and adopted me. And I grew up in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. So I listened to KDKA, and there was a morning guy, Reed Kordick and Company, and he'd have characters, and, I listened to that. But I never thought of it as a career for me.
You were more into the theater. And acting and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind me bringing this up? Because you actually, we're talking about mid-'70s.
Yeah.
Mid-'70s, you came out as a gay man on the radio in public at a time when that was not being done.
Yeah.
In Omaha, Nebraska. This was not in L.A. or San Francisco or New York. This is Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of backlash from that? Were there problems with that, or did people just accept you because they liked you?
Yeah. No, I was there are always the lunatic fringe. No matter what you do, you can sit on your head and whistle Dixie out your ass, and there's going to be the lunatic fringe, right?
Uh-huh.
And like at Boomer, I have one lady, no matter what I do, and one man, too, he's kind of a curmudgeon, who will just write me these snide emails. And fine, bless you, God bless you. Go yourself. No.
I mean, we can say it in the podcast, but watch your language, please. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, they're always going to be. You can't make everybody happy. But no, to answer your question, I never had any problem with it. In fact, I remember, I was I was performing at the Club 89, 1979, 78, 79. Which was Dick Glassford's little nightclub, kind of a second-rate nightclub where people like Ricky Nelson would show up, or Frank Sinatra Jr., that's Marilyn May.
Right.
And we had a TV show, a children's television show, Gil Flap's Troupe, which was the only locally produced children's television show on KETV. And it was Larry Williams and his puppets and Dave Murphy on the piano with original songs and a script and everything, and me and the puppets. And we did an adult version of it, not that it was R-rated or anything, at Club 89. And one Saturday, we had a packed house. There wasn't a seat to be had. And I said, we've got some really great surprises for you tonight. And I heard bang, 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 which sounded like the slamming of a door. And then the next thing I remember is I saw a flash, felt a burn, looked down. I had a white shirt on, and I saw blood. And I said, flash, burn, blood. Oh, I think I've been shot. So I dove over under a two-top. And we were to find out that there was this man, Dennis LePerry. Ulysses Cribbs came back from Vietnam, poor soul, and had come in and emptied a 12-gauge shotgun in or a 14-gauge shotgun.
Okay, yeah.
And killed a policeman, Dennis LePerry, and there were about 24 people injured like I was. It was just buckshot. And the police, after I went to the hospital, the police interrogated me because they wondered. We didn't know who this man was. Could have been someone you were dating. I mean, they approached it very respectfully.
Yeah.
And there was a reviewer here on WOWT television, Peter Citron, who was very supportive, and he said they can't do that. They're getting into your rights. And I said, no, they handled it well. They're just trying to get to the bottom of who this man was.
Well, there was a motive or something, yeah.
Yeah, and they found him cleaning his gun in his pajamas at home. It was PTSD. Yeah. And when I came back to Omaha 20 years ago, I was doing Urinetown at the Omaha Playhouse, and I saw in the Sunday paper Ulysses Cribbs going to be released from prison. And I said, as long as he stays on his drugs, good,
And you've not had any run-ins with him ever? Or,
No. I mean, that was that was one of the. I always say it's one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I learned that very quickly that tomorrow isn't promised.
Yeah.
We could just step off the curb and get hit by a bus, God forbid. Look at these fires and people dying, and what's happened just the last 5-10 years. Tomorrow isn't promised. All we have is now, right? And I've always lived in the past or in the future. I've created my own depression, right? And for the last 7 years, I've been in AA, and one of the many things you learn is finding joy in life in the now. Now is all we have, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
As a cancer survivor, I feel the same thing. I mean,
right. There you go.
I've learned an awful lot from that same attitude. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that Club 89 incident, because I was starting off as a disc jockey in Green River, Wyoming.
Really,
an AM country station. 1,000-watt day, 250
Where are you
night.
from originally?
Originally from Cleveland. But we moved here when I was in high school. So I went to Benson High School. I went to UNO, and
we had several people in the broadcasting in Ohio University, where I fell into radio, who were from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Howie Chiswick.
No,
No, it doesn't ring. Probably a different
Yeah.
age.
Yeah,
difference.
and I wasn't in broadcasting then at the time.
You're younger than I am. You're
Yeah,
much younger than
I am. I'm a punk kid. I'm a punk kid.
You are.
But I remember, like I said, working in Wyoming, and all of a sudden ABC News comes up, and they talked about this story about the shooting at Club 89. I mean,
Well,
they made national news. It was a big.
My mother sent me clippings from all around the world
Yeah.
because this was 79, and you didn't have like a shooting anywhere, let alone in a nightclub
Yeah.
where people were killed. And today, what are there shootings every 3 minutes or 2 minutes or?
Kind of seems that way sometimes. So
Yeah.
let's move fast forward here a little bit now.
Okay.
So your time here on WOW Radio, where you were on the air doing the morning show, you were also doing a lot of plays, a lot of theater. You're a real personality here in town.
Thank you.
But as the media world goes, things change. What happens there now? We're talking like early '80s, I'm guessing. Where does Dave Wingert go from there?
Well, I don't want to go down my resume.
Yeah.
I left for St. Louis because they offered me like $50,000. They said, name your price. $50,000. And in 78, 79, that was a lot of money. And it was horrible winter. So I came back with the tail between my legs and then worked for, I don't know, Sweet 98, KGOR. I've worked for every station in town. And then I left again and came back. And the most recent leaving was for Seattle for 20 years, where I did local radio, and then Jones Radio Network syndicated, invited me to create an overnight show following Delilah. Delilah, you have to sing it. And so I was on 98 stations across the country. Now that's, so I've been to The Dance, right?
Yeah.
But that was the least satisfying moment of my career because it was all produced in a little closet, much like this, in Seattle. Right?
We look bigger though on the video. It looks like you're right.
Hello.
Looks like it's a real.
Yeah, this is fancy schmancy.
Yeah.
No, and my chapter in Seattle was fantastic. I mean, it was one of the best, right?
Yeah.
Best. But I came. I know. I was. They stopped my syndicated show, and I didn't know where I was going. Right, and a longtime friend of mine, Steve on Country Station, Steve and Gina.
Yeah.
Steve called me and said, have you thought about moving back to Omaha? And I said, no, not really. And I came back, and Gary Saddlemeyer, KFAB, said, well, why don't you do a Saturday show where Dave Wingert's been for 20 years and blah, blah, blah. And I did.
Yeah.
Ended up selling for iHeart. Then the morning man left at KGOR. I said, I want that shift.
Yeah.
Well, you've done syndicated show. Why would you want? I want that shift. And we were like number one right? But it was corporate radio, and they let people go, or they changed. Oh, I work with a program director. Jesus, just shoot me, right? We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And so I left. Oh, that's it. Then my depression. My cat died. I had to put my cat baby to sleep. I had to sell my house because they were paying me a lot of money, KGR. And I was planning my suicide because my father had killed himself the day I was born. Uh-huh. And I figured, it's poetic. It's gorgeous. I'm old. I have nothing more to contribute. Mind you, this is 18 years ago. And I'm just going to get the hose and put the car into the car and leave the garage door closed. And that was and friends helped me through that, right? And then I heard about this radio station, Boomer, that Steve Saline, a local lawyer, was founding. And I said, I was very subtle about it. I went to him and I said, please let me work for you, please. And I think Steve was afraid that my brand might overpower the radio station, but he let me do weekends. And it was, I am the poster child for Boomer music. It was a great fit. Great fit. So then he let me do the morning show, and that was 10 years ago. And we have gone from, as you know, from last place to we're number one, 45 plus. This little homegrown where we scotch taped these low-powered transmitters together.
Yeah.
Number one, because people love the product.
I'll never forget. 10 years ago now, been a little over 10 years ago, Steve Saleen held a big.
Oh, that's right. You went with.
Yeah. He held a big unveiling party. Hey, we're going to be here, and I said, man, you got some guts. You got some guts. An AM station when
it was just AM, just 1490. That was it.
Because all like 99% of the radio stations in this town are owned by 3 different companies.
Right.
And that's consolidation had taken over.
Right.
And so to do a standalone AM back then, or even now, is just unheard of.
Unheard of.
And yet he's been able to not only survive, but thrive.
Thrive. The model is old-fashioned radio, and mostly because of the leadership of Pat Combs. He's our president. He's become the brother I always wanted. And just through, they say spiritually you should wear life like a loose garment. That's the expression. Wear life like a loose garment. If you go into corporate radio, and I'm whitewashing here, this isn't everybody, because some of yours and my best friends work over at KFA, work at iHeart. But there's a tension there, and a lot of them are unhappy. We're just happy, and we're having fun playing this feel-good music, right? There's no, don't do this, don't do that. What we don't do is we don't do any controversy.
Yeah.
We are the happy place.
Yeah.
And it's worked. Of course, we added an FM, then another FM, then a digital, and then an app, and, now we're in Lincoln, and we have our own digital department, Performance Digital. It's extraordinary. I mean, we've met sales, what do you call it? I'm not good at
Quotas?
Sales
Goals?
quotas.
Yeah,
Thanks.
goals,
We've exceeded sales quotas for the last 3 or 4 years every month.
That's wonderful.
Beats a sharp stick in the eye, right?
And really very difficult in this environment, in this media environment, when there's so many other options out there for people to go to, podcasting being one of them, streaming audio, satellite.
Well, I wouldn't say difficult. I would say challenging, certainly. But it's like, Tom, it's like, well, this will be hard. Well, if you say so, you determine how things are going to go. For some reason, we are sailing high like a kite. And I'm having it's been the best 10 years of my life, bar none. Never mind getting off of opioids, but also being appreciated for whatever it is I bring to the party. But, of course, we've got Jack Swanda and Chuck Yates and Neil Nelkin, these old-time broadcasters. We added up, when we did our Boomstock thing downtown this year, we added up the number of years that all 4 of us had in broadcasting. It was like 298 years or something.
But you're still standing, and that's the exciting thing about it too, is that you're still getting the job done. And that's it. I know with me, like doing this, they recently had a reunion at KFAB, and I went to it, because people I hadn't seen in a long time. But I'm not really great at looking back. I want to be looking forward. I want to be what's next. What else is on the agenda? And like doing this right now, it's all new. We're growing this, and thankfully for everybody that's listening and that have joined us over the years, over the last 6 months rather that we've been doing this or so. It's growing. Havana Garage sponsoring it. Thanks. Shout out to Havana Garage in the Old Market. One more time, give them a plug.
So do you find that people like all over the world are finding your podcast?
I don't know all over the world, but I've had people out of town that want to stay connected to Omaha. People that knew who I was and that have found me and listening around the country. They move away and that they find a topic that they're interested in. Somebody that has an interest in the old days of top 40 radio. They might tune into this podcast. Somebody else, we're doing one with an expert on artificial intelligence.
Oh, you told me about that.
Yeah,
fascinating.
and so somebody will find that and listen. So, the audience is primarily Omaha. Primarily Omaha, Council Bluffs, the surrounding area, but the potential is worldwide, which is so interesting.
Do you remember Pat Hazel?
I know Pat Hazel, yeah.
Comedian.
I worked with him when I was doing stand-up. Yeah, we worked together.
Brilliant man, and he was in town recently for a fundraiser at the Omaha Playhouse, and he does a podcast called
Creativity and captivity. Yeah.
and has talked to these people,
Mm-hmm.
like the creme de la creme, and it's fascinating. And I've found personally, I'm a slow reader, so I like Audible books. So I'm finding now more the Audible, stick my earbuds
Yeah.
in, and what can I find now?
Yeah.
I'm listening to a book by David Steinberg that I was telling you about, and talking about working with Lily Tomlin and Johnny Carson, and directing, designing women, and he's had a career unbelievable. The people he's worked with, Jonathan Winters, he toured 2 years with Nanu. Robin Williams, right? And today we have so much good stuff at our fingertips.
Yeah.
I just watched a documentary on Robin Williams that blew me away. It was on HBO. It was on Max.
Yeah.
So moving. I just stood and watched the last 10 minutes and cried. What a beautiful, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but all of this entertainment at our fingertips, I guess that's where I was going.
Yeah, I know it is. It's a whole different environment in that, and which is good. Moving forward in that. As you said, you didn't want to be a disc jockey per se, and I got friends that have done that.
And we're still called by people DJs,
even though everything's all on the computer now. And
to me, a DJ today is a guy who plays music in clubs.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but the point I was trying to make with this is that if all you were doing was doing time and temp, hey, how you doing? A good-looking Tuesday.
Yeah.
Those guys, they're out of a job right now. Personalities, people that bring something to it, that's expose a little bit of themselves, that let the audience into their world, and vice versa. Those guys are still hanging around.
One of the best things I ever saw was Kathy Bates on Inside the Actor's Studio. Remember that guy with the cards in front of him?
Right.
Brilliant, man. And Kathy was answering questions from the acting students, and she said, we're all just sitting around the campfire telling stories, the stories of our lives, what it's like to be you, what it's like to be me. And in that sharing, the barriers come down, and we see how similar we are. And it gives us courage to move on. And I thought, that's what I do in radio. That's why I love radio and theater. Storytelling. Everybody loves a good story, right?
And I want to talk a little bit about the story about your recovery.
Oh,
okay, because I didn't know about I knew about the alcohol, but I didn't know about the opiates.
Yeah, well, alcohol. Back in the 70s, we would close the wine cellar underneath the Firehouse Dinner Theater. I mean, I was in my 20s, I guess, and we'd do a show on stage, and then we'd go and close the wine cellar, and then go home and have a couple of hours of sleep, and I'd get up and do morning radio. I couldn't begin to do that today. No, so I guess I was a wino or an I was a drunk.
Yeah.
I always indulged. Whether it's wine or buying records or Amazon, click, buy now, right? Oops, I'm out of money. How did that happen? But what happened was, and this is not necessarily my fault, I had 3 hip operations. I know I only have 2 hips, but the first one was they put the wrong ball in and kept coming out, so it had to be replaced. 3 hip operations and 3 shoulder operations. So I was on oxycodone for a good 24 years.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I thought, I need to have another operation so that I can get back on oxy, right? And I worked with a pain doctor here in town, and he said, well, you're not an addict. I'm not worried about you. But I would go to him once a month and say, I got up one night and I had my bottle of pills and I sneezed and half the bottle went down the toilet. Isn't that the craziest thing you've ever heard? Does that ever happen? Oh, yeah. We'll get you another,
Yeah.
It kept feeding me. I couldn't imagine life. I couldn't go to I couldn't go to Baker's without having a couple of oxys in me because I thought I needed it to be better. I've never been enough. See.
And you and I worked together during this time period, and I never would have guessed that.
I was very functioning.
Yeah.
Well, I thought when I was on Oxy, I was, Yeah, I wouldn't go to an audition. I wouldn't do a performance on stage without some kind of opioid in my. Yeah. So, what do you? Yeah.
So what made you decide I've had enough? What made you?
Well, I had a doctor who told me that'll kill you, and I said, no, I will be the one guy who will survive. I mean, I read Matthew Perry's book.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on oxycodone, and he needed, like, I don't know, 42 pills a day, right? I mean, he was the extreme. But what was your question?
Oh, just what made you turn your life around?
End it?
Yeah.
A doctor said it would kill me, and I knew it wasn't practical to live like that because it's a stepping stone to, I don't know, I never went any further. I didn't go on to meth and,
Yeah.
Other stuff, which isn't easy, I hear. But today it's scary. They talk about that these opioids can have, what is it? It's something that the drugs that come in from. I really sound intelligent. The thing by the deal. I'll meet you by the thing by the deal. Albert Brooks in Broadcast News. There's something fentanyl.
Fentanyl, yeah.
Which could kill you. You just need one bad pill.
Yeah.
To kill you. But I always went through the doctors, right? And I was tired of lying to the doctor. I mean, it was a bit, right? So I found a good pain doctor who's got me on this transitional, which I'll probably be on forever. It's called Suboxone. Been on it for 7 years, 8 years. Oh, as long as I've been in AA. And she said he'll probably be on it because my system, I have a high tolerance, right? My mother was an alcoholic and my father was a depressive. That's a great combination.
And and that's how you wound up being in the creative field.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
But everybody has something. Everybody's carrying baggage.
Yeah.
But the thing about, I shouldn't say AA, you're not supposed to talk about it, a 12-step program.
Okay.
Every time I've said AA, scratch that, and
Yeah.
a 12-step program, because you're not supposed to talk about it, because God forbid I should fall off the wagon. They'll say, see, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
No, I didn't work. Anyway, you learn how to live life better. People who are alcoholic or addicts have personality traits I am the most judgmental person in the world. My mother was, see her, she's an idiot. See him, he's an asshole. She was very judgmental.
Yeah. New
Yorker, very intelligent. And I was the same way and am the same way and impatient, too. I can get impatient. I'm standing in line in Walgreens, and there's a woman trying to figure out the credit card thing. And it's like, lady, I could have bought a suit in the time it's taking you to buy this pack of gum. And it's like, that's no good. It's no good for you. It's no good for other people. So I'm learning to day by day be a better person, right? Cut people slack.
Yeah.
Because we're all in this together. And that's why the we, them, us, them thing in the politics. It's their fault.
No, I know,
There is no they.
If I can just, we don't really talk a lot of politics on this podcast, but I will say one thing.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk right now about, tariffs and that to stop the flow of fentanyl into the country. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a noble goal to stop the flow of fentanyl. Mm. If you want to stop the flow of fentanyl in the country, then deal with mental health issues, deal with rehab issues, put money into that so that you dry up the demand. Dry up the demand, and
preach.
And that to me is and we've had mental health experts on this podcast over time.
That's it.
And that really, I think, is one of the things that we don't spend enough time talking about or acknowledging. I mean, what you've done here, open up like this. I mean, that takes a lot of courage.
I figured maybe it'll help somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe some will hear and say, oh, maybe I need to, whatever. But go to the source, right? It all starts with us. Life is an inside job, right? Our happiness, it's an inside job.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's a very wise comment, I think.
Well, I get lucky once in a while. I'll tell you what, I really enjoy this. I mean, like
Thank
I said,
you. God, we went all over the place.
Well, hey, that's good. Well, yeah, look at the time. But I want to give you a plug here now, okay? People that don't know, Boomer Radio. Where can they find Boomer Radio?
Well, go to myboomerradio.com. That's our webpage, and there are all the frequencies, and get the app, My Boomer Radio app. There's several other stations around the country a little bit like us, but it's the one in Omaha. Mm-hmm. And I'm on in the morning, 5 Central Time to 10 Monday through Friday. And thank you for the plug. Appreciate that.
And playing the hits of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, right?
60s and 70s. That's
60s and 70s.
Occasionally we go back into the 50s because I bought 45s when I was baby. I'm a baby boomer.
45s.
I went down to the National Record Mart in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, on the other side of the railroad. Railroad goes right through town, and I'd hear a song on the radio, and I go, I gotta get that record. I've always been a record, an audiophile.
The rest of something like an old guy.
And vinyl's coming back.
It is coming back, but there's still not the same. The feeling that you had as a kid going to the record store.
Right.
And just going through and looking at the albums and reading the liner notes and all of that comes with it.
Yeah.
Which hey, look, I love the convenience of having every song known to man on this phone,
sure.
Right? I love that convenience, but...
Well, everything old is new again. Playing a good vinyl record on your turntable on a good stereo, sounds... even better than a CD. I know. Believe me, it does. It's warmer. I appreciate you taking time to do this. Thank you.
By the way, if you're into broadcasting and that, a couple of other podcasts we've already done. Otis 12.
Otis one of my favorite people on the face of the earth.
Very talented broadcaster. Also, Mike McKnight from Channel 6 TV, the longtime reporter on Channel 6. He also joined us. So we've got some other broadcasters along the way. That's my background.
Thank you for the invitation.
I find it fascinating. David, as always, a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
And I want to thank the folks at Havana Garage one more time. Havana Garage in the Old Market. If you're going to a concert, if you're going to a show at the Holland, or maybe Steelhouse, or maybe there's so much going on. That's the other thing. You talked about, you moved to Omaha in 72, 73, 75. What Omaha had going for it then versus what it has going for it now, completely different. There's so much going on, especially like downtown now.
What the downtown looks like, whoever they had developed that downtown area, the riverfront.
Yeah.
It's very astounding. And our new venues. I mean, good for Omaha Performing Arts, right? The Holland, the Steelhouse, as you say, the Orpheum. Nice little intimate CHI center,
Yeah, a little bit different. There's a lot of great stuff going on there. And if you're finding yourself in that neck of the woods, make sure you make the Havana Garage a part of your evening.
It's a cool place.
Every Tuesday, 10 a.m., a brand new podcast is up there and running. Make sure you like us, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thanks for joining us here for this episode of Becca's Talking.